Ever feel like you're walking through a minefield in your own relationship? Like at any moment, something could blow up and you don't even know why.
You're talking about those hidden traps, those triggers that you just can't seem to figure out.
Yeah, it's a common sentiment, man. And today we're diving deep into why that might be.
Especially for guys trying to make sense of the whole man-woman thing.
Right, exactly. For this deep dive, we're tackling Conrad Reicher's book, Why Women Lie, an evolutionary explanation. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, this isn't about bashing women.
No, not at all.
Reicher's approach is scientific, evolution, and that's what we're focusing on today.
We're going to give you the tools to understand the potential reasons, the why behind female dishonesty, at least how this author sees it.
And how it might apply to your own relationship.
Exactly.
Think of it this way. If you're playing a game, you want to know the rules, right?
Of course.
Even ones nobody talks about.
Right, the hidden rules.
And that's what Reicher's book offered. A peek behind the curtain of male-female interaction. So, let's unpack it. Reicher's main argument is that women lying. It's not some evil character flaw.
It's not about being malicious.
He says it's a survival instinct, deeply rooted, honed over thousands of years of evolution.
It's fascinating. He compares it to the animal kingdom. You know, like those female birds that pretend to be injured,
That's
deception, yeah, but driven by a need to protect their young.
Powerful instinct.
Yeah.
And that fits right in with the red pill view, doesn't it? It's not about taking it personal. It's about understanding the underlying, the biological programming, I guess.
Exactly. It's not about you. It's about nature.
So how does this ancient survival instinct play out in the modern world? I mean, we're not fighting off saber-toothed tigers anymore.
Right. But Reicher argues that while women may not be facing those same physical threats, the need to secure resources, to feel protected, it's still there, even if it looks different today.
So even though we're not living in caves, those primal instincts are still influencing behavior.
You got it. Think about it historically. A woman's survival and the survival of her children, it often depended on her finding a strong mate, a capable provider.
And today, that translates to what? Emotional support, financial stability, commitment.
Exactly. Reicher's suggesting that women might still feel this subconscious drive to secure those resources, even if they're consciously aiming for a more equal partnership.
Okay, I'm following you. But how does lying fit into all of this?
Well, think about it from an evolutionary perspective. A woman who is good at deception, maybe she had an advantage, attracting a mate, getting resources.
So it could be a way to hide weaknesses, exaggerate strengths, manipulate situations.
Possibly. It's like a hidden contract, right? Men aren't even aware of the rule.
And that leads us to Reicher's next point, societal pressure. He says women are stuck in a double bind. Be honest, be authentic, but also look, act, and achieve in a certain way.
It's like this pressure cooker, trying to live up to impossible standards.
You see it everywhere. The need to be perfect on social media, career, family, the perfect body. It's exhausting.
It is. And it pushes some women to lie, to close the gap between who they are and who they feel they should be.
So it's like society's backing them into a corner where lying becomes a coping mechanism.
You could say that. Reicher even suggests that movements like #MeToo, while super important for supporting victims, might unintentionally create an atmosphere where some women feel they have to exaggerate or even make things up just to be heard.
That's a really interesting point and, potentially controversial.
Yeah.
But it's not about discrediting the movement. It's about understanding the complexity of the situation.
Exactly. And men need to be aware of this as they navigate the world of modern relationships. Reicher isn't saying all women lie, but understanding these pressures, evolutionary and societal, it can be helpful.
So we've got evolution, societal pressure. What's next?
Well, Reicher gets into the differences in communication styles between men and women. This is where things get really practical. He argues women tend to communicate in direct hints, implications, nonverbal cues, while men are generally more direct.
I think every guy listening right now is nodding their head.
He's got this funny story in the book about a woman named Maria who wants a diamond necklace. But does she just come out and say it? No. She leaves jewelry magazines lying around, drops subtle hints.
It's like we're supposed to be mind readers.
That's Reicher's point. This indirect communication. It's probably a way to avoid confrontation, historic.
Because in the past, being direct could be dangerous for a woman.
Right, but in today's relationships, that indirectness, it can come across as dishonesty, even if it's not meant that way.
So how do we bridge that gap? It's like we're speaking different languages sometimes.
Reicher says men shouldn't get frustrated. Learn to recognize the pattern and respond strategic. Don't try to read between the lines. Be direct, ask questions. I don't get what you mean. Just tell me what you want.
Straight to the point.
Exactly. It's about understanding the why behind her behavior. and adapting your approach. Clear communication.
This is already making those minefields a little clearer, but I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
You're right. Riker goes even deeper, exploring biological factors that could be at play, and that's when things get really interesting.
Let's dive into that in part 2.
Again, for more of our deep dive into Conrad Riker's Why Women Lie. We've been looking at the evolutionary and societal roots of female deception, and now we're going to get into the biological factors Riker thinks might be involved.
You said things get interesting, so I'm ready. Let's talk biology. What does Riker say about hormones?
He brings up some fascinating research suggesting that women's hormonal cycles, they might actually influence their tendency to lie. Specifically, studies show women might be more prone to dishonesty at certain times in their cycle when estrogen levels are higher.
Wait a minute. Are you saying women are basically controlled by their hormones? Like biology dictates their honesty?
Well, it's not that simple. It's way more nuanced. Riker's just presenting this as one piece of the puzzle. Not about absolutes, more like recognizing possible factors.
Okay, that makes more sense. But why would higher estrogen make women lie more? What's the evolutionary logic there?
From an evolutionary perspective, think about it. Lying during fertile periods could have been a strategic move. If a woman needed to find a mate and resources for her kids, deception could have been a big help.
So it's not like she's consciously manipulating, right?
No.
More like an instinct to protect and provide for her potential children.
That's the theory. Riker even brings up how hormonal birth control could mess with these natural cycles, adds another layer of complexity.
This is blowing my mind. But how does a guy actually use this in his relationship? I can't exactly track my partner's cycle and change my behavior, right?
No, you're right. You don't need to be a hormonal detective or anything. The point is awareness. Just knowing that biology might be playing a role in your partner's behavior. It can help you be more understanding, more empathetic.
Instead of jumping to conclusions or assuming she's being malicious, we can recognize there might be something deeper going on.
Exactly. And that change in perspective can be huge when it comes to handling conflict, building a stronger relationship.
This ties into the whole red pill idea of understanding female nature, right? It's like taking the emotion out of it and looking at it logically. Strategic.
Got it. And Riker takes it even further, talking about how some women might use dishonesty as a tactic to gain power or control in a relationship.
Now we're getting to the good stuff. This is what a lot of guys, especially in the red pill community, want to hear about. Let's talk about those power dynamics.
Here's the thing. Riker's not saying women are evil masterminds, okay? He's just pointing out some tactics that some women might use, often unconsciously. Tactics that play on male psychology.
Okay, so give us some examples. What are these tactics that men should be on the lookout for?
He talks about the damsel in distress routine, where a woman might exaggerate a problem or act helpless to make a man want to protect her.
Yeah, I've seen that one. It triggers that provider instinct, the hero complex.
Exactly. Riker says it taps into a man's biological urge to protect. Makes him more likely to miss red flags or inconsistencies in her story.
Like she's pushing our buttons without us even knowing it.
Exactly. Another one he mentions is using tears strategically.
Oh man, the waterworks.
Yeah.
Instant guilt trip.
Often that's the point, Riker says. Tears can be powerful, fusing conflict, getting out of consequence, manipulating the situation.
So what's a guy supposed to do? How do we avoid falling for these things?
Riker's got two main pieces of advice. First, develop what he calls red pill awareness.
Okay, break that down for me. What does that actually mean?
It means understanding the power dynamics in the relationship and how they can be used against you. Observe her behavior. Recognize the manipulative tactic. And don't be afraid to call her out on it.
Like taking off the rose-colored glasses, seeing the relationship for what it truly is.
Exactly. This doesn't mean you have to be suspicious or distrusting. It's about being informed, self-aware, having the guts to address issues head on instead of sweeping them under the rug.
Because sometimes avoiding conflict isn't the answer, right? A little healthy confrontation can actually make the relationship stronger.
That's what Riker says. He's big on setting clear boundaries early on and having honest, open communication about expectation, deal breakers.
Have those tough conversations up front so resentment and frustration don't build up.
Exactly. And this brings us to Riker's second piece of advice. Master the art of communication.
You hear that a lot, but it's easier said than done, especially with those differences in communication styles we were just talking about.
Definitely a challenge, but it's key. Riker suggests that men focus on active listening, really pay attention to what she's saying, both the words and her body language, and ask questions to make sure you understand her point of view.
So it's not just waiting for your turn to talk, it's about actually engaging with her, showing her you're listening.
Exactly. And when it's your turn, be clear and direct. Women might be good at being indirect, but that doesn't mean men have to play that game.
So honesty is key, but it's also about finding that balance, right? Between being assertive and being compassionate.
You nailed it. Create a safe space for open, honest dialogue, where both partners feel heard and respected, even when you disagree.
It sounds like Riker wants men to completely change how they approach relationships. It's about taking control, setting boundaries, mastering communication.
It's about being proactive, strategic instead of passive and reactive. And it's about recognizing that a truly fulfilling relationship requires effort and a willingness to challenge traditional gender roles and expectations.
That fits right in with the red pill philosophy, right? Self-improvement, personal responsibility.
So Riker's message resonates with that core idea of taking ownership of your life and your relationship.
This has been so insightful. We've covered evolution, societal pressures, biology, communication, power dynamic. Is there anything else Riker explores in his analysis of why women lie?
He also talks about the media and how it contributes to this culture of dishonesty, especially the pressure women face to meet these unrealistic beauty standards.
Let's unpack that in the last part of our deep dive. And we're back, wrapping up our deep dive into Conrad Riker's Why Women Lie. We've been digging into some heavy stuff, man. Evolution, biology, societal pressures, even power dynamics.
And now we're going to add another layer to this whole deception puzzle, the media.
Right, because you can't deny the influence of all the images and messages we see every day.
Exactly. Riker really focuses on how the media pushes these unrealistic beauty standards, puts so much pressure on women to fit into this narrow definition of attractive.
I mean, this isn't exactly breaking news, is it? Women have been dealing with that pressure forever.
True. But Riker's point is that social media, it's put that pressure on steroids. Now it's not just magazines and movies. It's a constant stream of filtered, photoshopped images everywhere.
So women are comparing themselves to these unattainable ideals 24/7. It's no wonder they feel insecure.
Right. And Riker suggests that all this negativity, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Media tells women they're not good enough, so they start lying to hide their flaws.
It's a vicious cycle. They're trying to reach this impossible standard, and dishonesty becomes the bridge between reality and expectation.
Makes sense. They might lie about their age, their weight, their achievements, even their relationship, trying to project this perfect image that doesn't exist.
And it's not just about vanity, right? It goes back to those evolutionary and societal pressures.
Exactly. Remember, Riker says women are still, whether they realize it or not, trying to secure resources, protection. And in a world where beauty equals value, a flawless image can feel like survival.
I feel like this twisted way to protect themselves.
And the crazy thing is, it's not just coming from men.
You mean women are pressuring each other?
Totally. Riker talks about how this competitive culture, fueled by the media, creates this toxic environment. Women constantly judging each other, comparing themselves.
It's a never-ending competition, playing out on social media for everyone to see.
And in that environment, dishonesty becomes a weapon, a way to get ahead or tear someone else down.
It's a pretty bleak picture, man. If the media is fueling this dishonesty and women are buying into these messages, is there any hope for a more authentic, honest way of relating?
That's the big question, isn't it? Riker doesn't have all the answers, but he says we need to start by acknowledging the problem and challenging the systems that push these harmful ideals.
So it's not about blaming women. It's about understanding the forces that are shaping their behavior.
That's it. And it's about starting a conversation in the red pill community and in society as a whole about how to create a more supportive environment for women where they don't feel like they have to lie to be valued and loved.
Sounds like a huge task. But if we want better relationships between men and women, it's a conversation we got to have.
For sure. It's about recognizing that we're all part of this system, and real change takes all of us.
So what can guys listening do? How do we use this knowledge in our own lives, our relationships?
First, educate yourself. Read Riker's book, Why Women Lie. Really dive into the research. It's on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books. The more you understand what drives women's behavior, the better you'll navigate your own relationship.
It's about seeing things clearly, even if it means facing some uncomfortable truths.
Exactly. And then, talk to the women in your life. Have honest conversations, share your perspective, and listen to theirs. Communication is everything.
And don't be afraid to shake things up. Challenge those harmful media images. Support women who are fighting against unrealistic beauty standards. Create a space for authenticity, vulnerability in your own relationship.
We can't change the world overnight, but we can make conscious choices in our own lives and interactions.
This has been an eye-opening deep dive. We've covered so much ground. Evolution, psychology, societal pressures. It's clear that understanding why women lie, it's crucial for any man who wants a stronger, more fulfilling relationship.
It's about taking the red pill, seeing the world for what it is, and using that knowledge to navigate your own path wisely, clearly.
So to everyone listening, keep those minds open, keep those conversations going, and keep searching for the truth.
This is The Deep Dive, signing off.